when you feel like hopeless sometimes that all these dopers are stealing headlines, and then you think about all the people and the brands doing it the right way, there's so much hope and inspiration in that. We wanted to bring hope in sometimes a hopeless sporting world.
This is Running for Real, the podcast for runners who know that for every runner's high, there are just as many lows. All those just missed PRs, easy runs that feel hard, injury blues, and more. Each week, we'll talk to running, health, and wellness experts about their highs, lows, and best advice to build our confidence. Running for Real is about being honest, being brave, and most of all, not feeling alone. And now here's our host, Tina Muir.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 186 of the Running for Real podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am happy you are here, and I hope you are out enjoying yourself. As I am recording this, as I'm starting to ramp up for, well, actually around now, I intend on beginning my maternity leave. We are right in the midst of the COVID-19 kind of staying in, social distancing thing. So I can't really tell you what's going on in life right now because by the time you listen to this, life will definitely be different. There'll be a lot more knowledge on what's going on. And so, yeah, I'm not going to be able to give you much context today. I am, however, going to give you just a short apology for my episode today. Towards the end, with this situation going on, as many of my recordings over the coming months are going to involve kids not going to school, not going to daycare. Kids are going to be around. And towards the end, we do have to have a little friend come join the interview and mostly sit quietly, but just say a few things. I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. But this is kind of the situation we're in right now. And I want to get this so that I can be 3 months ahead of podcasts by the time you listen to this. Hopefully I will be 3 months ahead. We'll have recorded through the end of July, definitely maybe mid-August. And so I can completely step away and enjoy being a mother again. Well, not a mother again. I shouldn't say that. I still have Bailey. I can enjoy being a two-time mum. So yes, today I am excited to bring you Shanna Burnette on the show. I absolutely love this woman, and you may have seen her name flying around, but you're going to get to know her and you're just going to get to love her. It's a lot kind of about the kind of standing up for yourself, kind of believing in what is important for you and kind of speaking up about that. We talk a lot about, being genuine and why it's important to follow your heart and trust who you are, which you probably have noticed is a major theme for me this year. Shanna does a lot. She is very inspiring, but kind of one of those people that mostly stays behind the scenes. So I wanted to bring her out to the front and allow everyone to get to know her. So I'm excited to bring her on the show. I'm not going to tell you too much more because we kind of work our way through her journey as we go through this episode. But I want to tell you that you can find links to all the things we'll talk about today, because we do kind of cut off quickly towards the end, in the show notes at tinamuir.com/episode 186. And anything else I need to tell you? No, I don't think so. So we are just going to get on with the episode, with my episode with Shanna. Thank you so much to Tracksmith for sponsoring this episode and for supporting me. Now, many of you have heard how Ultra stepped in at the beginning of the year to come support me during this maternity year, during this pregnancy year, and just be there for me despite no promise of performances, no promises of expectations, or, to be honest, being able to form solid sentences anytime after the baby is due. Ultra did that at the beginning of the year, and I'm so excited and thankful that Tracksmith has stepped in to support me as well. Tracksmith is a Boston-based brand led by a group of runners who are committed to making classically stylish, cutting-edge apparel. I can absolutely attest to that. Even last year when I held my meetup at their track house, which is, let me just tell you a bit about that for a second. They have this event space within their shop in Boston, and rather than using the entire shop for their clothes to, promote their products, to sell their products, which you would absolutely expect a brand to do, Tracksmith has turned part of it into the Track House, which is a place where you can get a coffee, you can celebrate with your community, you can meet there after a run. I held my meetup there and had over 50 people come, and it was just the most wonderful feeling. There was just this buzz in the air. It was such a cool place to be, and that just kind of shows a lot about what this brand means. They also, as I said about the the quality, the style. After my meetup, I went and looked around, or snooped around, I should say, the products to see what the big deal was. And I'd heard so many people talking about how much they love their products, and they are such good quality. And let me tell you, now I am wearing them myself and have been for the last few months. Even at the end of my pregnancy, they are so comfortable and light and soft, and I just absolutely love them. So if you have been thinking about trying it, I'm sharing each of the things I've been enjoying over the past few weeks. And one of the things I'm enjoying right now is the Twilight Tee. The Twilight Tee is an ultra lightweight training tee that is just built to be a workout staple. This hardworking piece was inspired by their summer tradition of Twilight track meets, which I love this. There's so many aspects of their product names that come from these really unique things that can be found within the running community. And this is another example of that. So Twilight meets, if you don't know, are these under the radar races that are perfect for testing your fitness. And this tee is designed for running hard in warmer temperatures. It's made from Light as Air Bravio blend, which is a unique Italian made micro mesh that is silky soft, moisture wicking, and incredibly cool against your skin. I absolutely love this. And if you want to go to a Tracksmith and try something on for yourself, you can go to tracksmith.com/Tina Muir. That's tracksmith.com/Tina Muir. And if you use code Tina, you can get 15% off your first order. I absolutely love these products, and I think you will too. Go to tracksmith.com/Tina Muir, enter code Tina for 15% off. Shanna, I am so excited to bring you on the Running for Real podcast. I don't know how many of my audience members would have heard of you or known of you, probably seen your name around, but I've wanted to bring you on for a while. I've looked up to you for such a long time, and I'm excited for everyone to meet you. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be on your show, Tina. I love it.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very nice to hear. And, I appreciate your time, and there's so many things that I've got to cover in this episode. So I guess I can just dive right into the questions here. So for those who do kind of think, oh, I know that name, why does that sound familiar? It's probably most notably for working alongside Kara Goucher as her agent, along with being the founder of Clean Sport. So tell us firstly, when it comes to Kara, as people just love her, or the listeners, was this a thing where you guys were always close? You've known each other since college, and you just, were the best of friends and decided you wanted to go on these ventures together? Or how did that friendship kind of unfold?
I mean, I like that story, but no, that's not how it happened. So I did run at University of Colorado for cross country and track, but I ran with her little sister, Kendall Schoolmeister, and her and I were really good friends. She was one of my best friends on the team. And it wasn't until I think I moved to Portland to get my MBA. I got my MBA at the University of Portland, and Kara was running for Nike up there. And Kendall and I had these apartments that didn't have air conditioning because that's not a thing really in Portland. So I remember like going over to Kara's house, knowing her, but not, like really knowing her.
Were you kind of like, oh my God, that's Kara Goucher? Or were you just like, that's Kendall's sister?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. It's not my personality to be like, oh my gosh, a little bit just in general to whoever it is. But it was more like, oh, this is Kara's house. It feels awkward. Not like, oh, this is Kara's house, like it would now. And Adam and I actually reconnected when he was doing something for his book in Boulder when they came out to run Big 12s to watch it. And Kara and I connected a little bit then, but then Adam emailed me because they were leaving Portland and they wanted somebody to help with that news. So I didn't realize at the time what big news that would be because I had an agency called Modcraft and we represented brands. We had Noon and Oiselle and Soleus. So I was good at like putting press releases out and all of that. But I put a press release out about Kara leaving Oregon to come back to Colorado to train with our college coach, Mark Wetmore. And that news went crazy.
Did you know at the time why she was leaving?
I did. Yes. And I think everybody knew. It was like speculation that she was going to be leaving Nike. but it wasn't confirmed when I put out that press release. So everybody wanted that news because it was a much bigger deal than just leaving Portland to come back to Boulder. You're leaving a Nike coach to come back to an unaffiliated coach, send message to the running community. And it was one of those juicy, news stories. And I mean, it was the first time in my career that I had different editors like mad at me because I didn't like tell one over the other first because I did it in a blanket way. So that's how our relationship started. And navigating her from Nike to, at the time, which was unknown sponsors, and Saucony was actually one on the table, and a few others. We just got close. We got really close through that process. And when she made the move to decide to go with Oiselle, then we became even closer because they were the first client of mine at Modcraft. So Sally and I were really close, and connecting her to Oiselle, and then it just organically developed for me to become her agent because I was helping her connect with these brands that were our clients because it was just a great fit, a wonderful person with wonderful companies. So then it just grew into this deeper relationship business wise. And then she is my number one best friend. I would take a bullet for her in a second. And we've gone through a lot together with the Alberto stuff and helping her navigate that to leaving Nike and all of that, which has entailed a lot behind the scenes. So yes, I mean, we've just become so close in the process.
Yeah, I love that. And just, you mentioned about kind of when she left Nike, kind of where do you go from here with regards to her sponsorship, with regards to brands? At this time, she was still, very competitive. Was it clear to you that it was, did she tell you, or was it clear that something maybe wasn't quite right, that it wasn't going to be about money necessarily when it came to this next decision, that she had to find somewhere where she felt like she fit, like you said, or she felt like she could be a part of something bigger? Like, was it clear to you that, something had changed to where she wasn't prepared to put up with just, I'll deal with it as long as you're paying me?
Yes, definitely. I think that's something that's so special about Kara that I don't think even a lot of people really grasp or truly just sit in that. Because when she left Nike, and that was so safe, and she had good money and her future was secure. She was probably going to go work at Nike. So everything was pretty much taken care of for her. And she made this giant leap to go to a company that was, and she had a really good offers on the table. And she made this leap to go with this company whose values she believed in and whose leader she connected with. And that was really scary. She had a really cush life for a long time. And she took a giant step of faith because at the moment when she signed with Oiselle, Skechers wasn't in the picture. So she was really drastically taking a big chance on where she wanted to be in life and where she wanted to go and what her story was going to be. And I had so much admiration for her for that, because she wasn't officially released from Nike, and it was Sally and I and Kara on a mountaintop in Mount Sanitas. And we were doing photos that she was signing with Oiselle, but at the time she wasn't officially released. And I remember Adam driving up and showing us her official release from Nike.
On that same day?
On that same day.
Cool.
Yeah. Because we were just oh yeah, she's with Oiselle, even though she's technically not, but we'll get the photos out and we'll have them when she is. And Kara and Sally and I are just bawling because the weight of her, off of her shoulders was so palpable for her. And we realized that we really didn't realize what a strain and a toll that was, but how free she was, even though financially it was going to be different. She just like her as a person and her as telling her story and her values, being able to like shine through was just so palpable. And I will never forget that moment. Like we were all like just sobbing for her, even though we couldn't feel what she really felt. She's just a person that really feels when she feels, and it's so genuine.
Oh. And what did that moment or that experience kind of teach you anything about the way you wanted to live your life, or any lessons you would say that you want to share with listeners as to kind of taking it kind of reminds me of like Pocahontas where she's like, do I want to take the smooth path, or do I want to take the like, I can't remember what she says, but the like, rocky path. Yeah. What did that teach you?
I think that's why Kara and I bond so well, is because we don't necessarily take the conventional path. I mean, I feel like you can see with a lot of the work that we've done together that it's not the easy route or the route that's most widely accepted or you're not going to get criticized for. But it's the right path. And I think that's what Kara really teaches us all, is that, I mean, you look at her and you look at everything that she's endured through talking about her maternity story, through talking about the bad situation with her coach, Alberto Salazar, but still being truthful, even though like she gets hate from people that just don't understand or don't want to believe her, that she still every day like does the right thing, and that her values matter greatly to her because she just wears them. And I think that for anybody that's listening, like it's hard and it's scary, but literally there's so much peace that comes with those type of decisions every time.
Absolutely. And I've talked to you about this a lot lately as well, kind of going back and forth with that kind of same like wrestling in your mind as to kind of sticking with who you are, sticking with what you believe, or whether you kind of back down a bit, but think about the short term. So you definitely have embodied that as well with the way you live your life and the advice that you give as well. So thank you. I want to talk about your running itself, because I don't think many people would know, the promise, I guess, or the expected path that you were in when you were younger, being undefeated in elementary and middle school, winning four state titles, setting school record, turning down an Ivy League education to go to University of Colorado. Is that right? Was it?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. On athletic scholarship, but never competing a full season, having 6 stress fractures. And then when you finally were getting out of all the injuries, having a terrible situation of your father passing away. So tell us, what happened there. And for many, that you would have been that person that they talked about, this is going to be the next big thing. She's going to be the next Olympian. So what do you think happened there looking back?
Yeah. So, I mean, running's always been in my blood. My mom and her 2 sisters ran, and talking to women pioneers. I mean, they were women pioneers. Like they used to have rocks thrown at them when they were running because little girls weren't supposed to run. So I've had a really good, genetics and history with my mom, and my mom was my coach when I started running in like 4th or 5th grade. The same old every other runner story, getting in shape for soccer. And so it just came naturally to me, and I loved it, and it was easy, and I'm just really competitive. And for me, I remember people being like, well, why do you run? And it was like, obviously to race, I loved it. I loved every moment of it. And then I was actually committed to go to Columbia. My dad was a professor and he had 2 PhDs. So I had the academic side with my dad and then the running side with my mom. So that was a path that I wanted to take, but I was that kid in high school that took my running very seriously. And I, never went to a party or, this is what I tell parents, like get them into sports if you know. And so when I really loved Coach Wetmore. I remember him saying that he could make me an NCAA champion. So that was more important to me at the time than getting an Ivy League education. I mean, I can look back and say, I don't know. But I remember getting my first stress fracture. It was at NCAA pre-nats, and my leg was just throbbing. And I just told my trainer, like, just give me some ibuprofen. I'm still running. And I was a freshman and I was a scorer, and I got a stress fracture right in the middle of cross country season, and I had to sit out. I literally became so depressed. I was so sad because everything that I've done for so long since 5th grade was revolved around running. It made me a better student. It made me a better person, like the structure, having that running in place. And when I got hurt, it was like crushing. I was never hurt before that. So it was really hard for me to deal with especially as a freshman and I'm from Nevada, not living near my parents and having to go through this. I remember that distinctly. Like, it was a really hard time for me, and road tripping with some of my boy freshman cross country teammates that were redshirting that year, and driving to nationals and watching our team win and watching Dathan win. And that was so hard. And then every other season after that, I'd get a stress fracture. And I think for me, it was like the intensity. I wasn't used to always going so hard all the time. Mm-hmm. Really take your easy days easy and your hard days hard. But at CU, that wasn't necessarily the case. And for me, I couldn't ever recover. And it was half my fault too, because I was very competitive. All of a sudden I'd see my name on the top of the list with the top girls, and I'd be like, obviously I'm going to do that workout at that speed, even though deep down I knew I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
So, and then when I finally started finding my stride, it was with Jenny Behringer Simpson. Now we were starting the steeplechase. And so Mark and Heather would have a separate workout after everybody else's workout, just to go over the steeple. And then I remember this one steeple workout where I was just so afraid of the barriers. I would stutter step and then go over the barrier. And we were getting ready to go to Big 12s. At the time it was Big 12s. And we were going to leave for Texas the next day. And I was so depressed and mad at myself that I was so afraid of the barriers. And then I went to Whole Foods like every college kid does, got a pint of Ben & Jerry's because I was very depressed about my bad workout because it was such a big deal at the time. That's what matters in life. And the doorbell rang, and I was mad at my roommate at the time. I'm like, why can't you just remember your keys? And it was my mom. And I was like, oh my God, you came to surprise me. You're going to fly to Texas with me for the Big 12s. And then she was like, honey, your dad died this morning. And I was like, you're lying. I was like, why would you lie to me like that? And she's like, I would never lie to you about something like that. And I remember just screaming and falling to the ground. And then all of a sudden my grandma and my aunt came, and they were embracing me. And he was everything to me. My dad was, it was almost like I idolized him a bit. Mm-hmm. He was my hero. Oh my God. And that was just, this the gut wrenching pain and shock from that moment was nothing I've ever felt before, nothing I've ever felt since. And I remember instead of packing my spikes for Texas to leave the next day, I had to pack all black and go to California to go bury my dad. So I took a year off of school at that time. My mom was living in Southern California because my dad was a professor. And I spent the year packing her up because I didn't know if I wanted to run ever again. I didn't know. I had so many just anger at running, but because he died running, and then I had all these stress fractures, I had anger at my life.
He died running while he was running?
He did. Yeah. My mom and dad would run every morning together, and a piece of plaque broke off of his heart. And they were joking one moment, and my mom was trying to save him the next moment, and he died in her arms waiting for the ambulance to come. Wow. So that was like, I mean, it's been so hard for my mom because she tried to save him. And then she has this guilt of like not being able to, even though, she couldn't. So, yeah. So I had a lot of just anger because I turned down this Ivy League, which my dad wanted for me. I mean, I remember him like wearing all his Columbia stuff, trying to convince me to go there. And then I turned that down and I felt so much like shame for that because of him. And then I chose running. Running was getting me injured. Running killed my father. I mean, I had a lot of anger at that time.
Of course.
So I took a year off because I was going to just get in-state tuition because I didn't think I was going to take my scholarship back. But Mark and Heather let me like take it back, but it never was what it was ever going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to like focus on the endurance side or the competitive side of running anymore. It really became my outlet to deal with a lot of emotions and a lot of just sadness and stress. But it wasn't something that was interesting to me anymore to be like, I'm just going to be really competitive and this is going to be the only thing for me and it's going to be about racing. The love of running became like therapeutic, which now I'm very thankful for.
Well, and that explains a lot about kind of where you have ended up, that you did have to find the sport beyond just the performance, and you saw how harmful that was for you to kind of approach it that way with, this like ferocious, I'm going to nail myself into the ground to do this kind of attitude. And when would you say that you were able to forgive, in a way, running for kind of, like you said, and as rightly so, as we all would, you kind of blamed it, for losing your dad, for kind of making you so miserable, for making you make a different decision in terms of your university choices. When did you learn to forgive running and find that within yourself, that it was more than just something that hurt you?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was those runs where I shifted my perspective, because it wasn't about like, here, I'm going to nail this workout and I'm going to go really hard. But it was those runs where you can go out and be by yourself and stop mid run and have like hyperventilating, dry, like sobbing, where you can't talk, because running can do that. That's where I really started to really love it, because at the time I didn't want to go to therapy. I remember being like, going to a therapist and they're like, so tell us how you're feeling today. I'm like, tell me how you're feeling today. So I just didn't have a good, like at that time, like sense of being able to talk about it. And that's where running and God became such saviors for me, because I would be able to go on a run and just like cry my head off, or be angry and go fast, or go really slow and walk and jog and cry. I think that's what's so beautiful about running. But at that moment, I didn't know running in that way. Mm-hmm. And so developing my love for running in a very therapeutic way, and whether it was alone or being able to go out with friends and just have fun and talk and forget about everything, it was so wonderful for me to see it in a much more like healthy way. Yeah,
for sure. And for someone listening who, has maybe had a loss or had multiple setbacks or had things that make them feel that running is just kind of against them, and there's nothing left in running if they can't kind of train and race, what would you say to that person? It's very easy to get stuck in that mindset like you were in. But what would you say to that person to show them that there is another side to this?
I would say to gain ownership of running again, because I let, running and expectations control me, instead of saying, like, this is what I would like to, where I want running to go. And I think that when you just get out there and you don't have these expectations on yourself, which I think a lot of us do as runners, we're all type A, we're all, very driven individuals. When you let that all go out the door and you don't take a watch and you don't check your splits and you just go for the love of going and letting it, like, hey, today I'm going to go for 10 minutes, or today I'm going to walk and jog, or today I'm going to go for an hour, whatever it is, like, don't have these expectations going out the door. Just get out the door and like you will know what you need to do once you drop all of that. And then you will find gradually that love coming back because you're gaining more ownership of the thing that you love so much.
So true. Thank you. And, you know, has any part of you in the time since kind of wondered, you know, could I get myself back in shape and race well? I mean, just for people listening, it often feels like being in the elite world, if you have this talent, like you got to make the most of it. And I remember when I stopped running to get my period back and, you know, start a family, I was so scared to say something because I thought people would say to me, why are you throwing your talent away? What a waste. Like, did any part of you kind of get tempted by that or hear that voice in your head saying like, you got to see what you could do, like try again?
You know, like I for sure, it definitely came in a couple times, but I was really happy that I got my MBA right out of college because I am always going to be competitive. I'm just a competitive person. I think that's what, like, you know, makes you a good runner is you want to see the best out of yourself. But I really learned to like switch that from just being about running. I mean, I definitely created a profession in the world that I love to do, which is running. And I took that competitive drive and that discipline to business. And that was really good for me because I knew that no matter if I found my talent, it wouldn't be long lasting. But with what I can do in the business world, I can take this a lot farther and a lot longer. And that's what really drove me. And then I can use my running as like an outlet for that, but I didn't need to like use my competitive drive in run more. That's where it came when I like started my agency and then started other things, which I think that it really opened the doors too, because you can still be really competitive for other people and wanting success for others, which I really like a lot, because when I, you know, would do things with Wazelle, the early days, I wanted so much good and success for Sally and the team. And that's what was like really competitive about me. It wasn't about myself anymore. And I think was a really good shift.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. And, you know, as I've already said, I've loved to see, you know, you did say that you wouldn't change anything about your journey. And, you know, for on behalf of so many of us listening, thank you for that. And that's good for us because, you know, if you'd had been focusing on your own running, then, you know, the running world may be very different. And I think you're right that in many ways we see it as kind of a mourning or a kind of grieving process of losing your running. I thought the same thing, but then you realize there's other things out there that are, you know, even better or very special in a unique way. So thank you for that. Okay, so moving on with kind of another area of your life, I guess, related to that, you have many roles that you have done and continue to do. I mentioned being Kara's agent. You also co-founded your own business, which you did mention, Modcraft with your husband. You also co-founded the nonprofit Clean Sport Collective, and we'll talk about that soon. But going back to the agent aspect, for someone who has heard this kind of term being thrown around, an agent, and you being Kara's agent of 6 years, you know, what does an agent do? And how did that come about with Kara to where you became her agent from, you know, that initial step? Was it just a natural process or what were the steps leading up to that?
So it was a natural process and one that I didn't see, or immediately that I would be doing, but something that I've loved very deeply. And I'm not a traditional agent in the way that you would think of an agent, you know, because a lot of agents would look for a runner out of college, sign them to a shoe deal, go like in track meets, help them with European standards and track lanes. But I took a well-established runner that was already well known. I mean, everybody knows Kara Goucher. And I, you know, helped her build a different, you know, partnership model, because a lot of, you know, runners are looking for sponsorship, or she was looking for partners that could help her on that journey. So I worked with brands, like I mentioned, and I felt like with Kara, I was working with another brand. And I think that was the most successful for our relationship, because I can take these brands and minded brands to do really great things. And so then it was fun because she was the first, runner to have a separate apparel and shoe sponsor, which was a big deal. And then I do like negotiating contracts. I was pre-law in undergrad. And then, so that's like a big part of it is negotiating contracts for her, negotiating appearance fees, and helping her build her brand in general, which is a little bit different because when you're taking one athlete and you're signing them to one shoe company, it's pretty much done.
Yeah.
But we have we wanted to do something different and shake up the industry a little bit and really just focus on her voice. And I'm also different because I come from a publicity PR background. So I worked a lot of that angle with her as well, whether it was from telling her story about Alberto Salazar or just, raising her voice. And I think that's something that most traditional agents can do more of, and you'll see more of, is because I think all athletes should live as brands themselves. Yeah. Because when you do and you have a powerful voice, you are so much more powerful than just your sponsorship of Fast Times.
I absolutely agree with that. And, you mentioned there about kind of her working with multiple brands at the same time, as opposed to kind of more of the traditional, you have your one big sponsor. And, I think Kara and Meb are the two people that come to mind with, lots of not little companies, but, maybe some smaller companies in there. And what would you like to say to maybe any athletes listening or just anyone who is listening and kind of had wondered about this? Like how we've obviously mentioned that it is important for Kara to find brands that she works with, that she believes in, but there's got to be a lot of situations where you have these very small companies who are just doing great things. They're really making a difference within their own small communities. They're working for a greater purpose, essentially, than their bottom line. But, we've mentioned about Oiselle in the beginning. If we think about it with them, there's no way they would have been able to compete with any of the bigger brands, no matter how much they wanted to. But tell us about, why is it important for someone who is maybe a brand or an athlete, or even just someone who is looking at spending their dollars? Why is it important to think about what your message sends? Because it can very easily be, well, I'm just one person, I don't make a difference, I just want to go with the one who's going to give me the most money, or who's, if you're a consumer, well, my money doesn't count. Tell us about, why it is important to stand up for the little brands that maybe don't have the funding, but are really trying to make their way in the world.
Well, I think there's a few things with that. I think when you think about the little brands or the smaller brands and a Nike and the traditional big shoe companies, they're much more nimble because they are small and they the founder, and that founder genuinely cares about what happens with his or her company. And you can do a lot of great things. And when you think about traditional contracts, there are race bonuses or there are performance reductions. Mm-hmm. And when you're thinking about that long term, that can be really detrimental because you can get into this mindset where it is only about performance. And what if I don't measure up once I'm done racing? Or what if I don't matter as much if I'm not on the top podium? Where I think that the traditional sponsorship is very one brand owns that runner and you're only as valuable as your next race, which I don't align with. And that's something that I don't want to see for the future and for athletes. I think that you are much more valuable the way that you communicate with your community, the way that you give back, the voice that you have, making a difference with brands that you truly believe in. And I think that a lot of consumers are incredibly savvy and they get more savvy. And if you just sponsor a runner just to sponsor a runner because you're looking for an ROI on performances or American records or world records being broken, I don't think we're as interested in that anymore.
Friends, you've probably heard me saying over the past few months that I am currently taking 3 months off from working while I enjoy time with my new baby. Now, please make sure I stick to this. If you see me doing things work online, that is time for you to get in touch with me, say, hey, what are you doing online? Now, I will let you know my assistant, Amber, is going to be taking over some things for me. Some things I have prepared ahead of time. But if you notice that it seems to be very real time, please let me know, because I promised myself I would take 3 months off and I need to be able to stick to that. Now, that being said, there is one thing that I am continuing to do during this time. Not these podcasts. These podcasts were recorded ahead of time. You've got these interviews to enjoy. There will not be a break in episodes during this time. And I'm really thankful for guest host Sarah Crouch for taking over some of those. But the one thing that I am going to be doing during this time is writing my email newsletters on a Monday. Now, there's over 7,000 of you already signed up for these emails. I know you love them. I love seeing your replies come in every week. And you can sign up at tinamuir.com/subscriber. That's tinamuir.com/subscriber. All it is kind of an update, something I'm thinking about for the week, something that I'm appreciating, and it really makes you think. I love that I have the ability to get into people's heads and really make a difference. And then at the bottom, I give some things I'm enjoying, some updates, just some things that you may have missed throughout the week that I would have shared. And it's just something that's very kind of friend to friend. It just feels like I'm emailing you just to kind of let you know my updates. And I would love for you to be a part of the 7,000 other runners who are on this list. You can go to tinamuir.com/subscriber. That's tinamuir.com/subscriber to sign up. And I will see you every Monday.
Consumers are incredibly savvy, and they get more savvy. And if you just sponsor a runner just to sponsor a runner because you're looking for an ROI on performances or American records or world records being broken, I don't think we're as interested in that anymore. Mm-hmm. I think we're much more interested in the fact that Tina Muir has a podcast and that, you know, she's pregnant and she's doing all these incredible things as a mother and a runner. And look at the voice that she has and the women that she inspires. That's much more interesting, I think. And it's much more like sustainable long term.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you. That's nice of you to mention me.
True.
No, I appreciate that. And I just wanted to mention that because I think it's very easy as a consumer to feel like you don't matter, like your one choice doesn't matter, but it does. And it's very easy, to kind of get into the mindset as someone who is kind of putting themselves out there of like, I got to get what I can because, you know, you never know when the next thing's going to come along. But, you know, I've been learning more and more to say no to things because if you trust in your heart and you trust with what your morals are down the road, you know, the right path will come up. So just wanted to mention that.
And play the long game. That's exactly what I would say too.
Love that. Yes, absolutely. All right. So let's talk about Clean Sport. So you co-founded the nonprofit Clean Sport Collective to celebrate and create awareness for clean sport. You have over 5,000 individuals and organization members, including 40 brands. Tell us about how that came about and why you decided that you wanted to be the person to kind of set this up. Because I'm sure this had been something in people's minds. You know, what if we could get all the people that are participating in clean sport together? But then what gave you the kind of, not so much the confidence, but the motivation to actually do something about it?
Yeah. So, I mean, during all that time when Karen Adams spoke out against Alberto Salazar and the Oregon Project, it felt like I was watching two of like the people that mean the most to me in the world go through this car wreck, and I can help them navigate them and I can help them, you know, on the media side, but I wasn't really truly doing anything. Yeah. So I really like to do something. I'm like, if this bothers me and clean sport as a general is like a topic I'm very passionate about, then we should do something about it. So that's how that happened. And there was definitely people that were very fundamental to it. I mean, my husband, Kevin Burnette, like helped with all the 501c3 filings, which is a lot. And then Kevin Rutherford, who's the CEO of Noon, and it was our longest standing client at Modcraft, was on the board. And he is just like this visionary that really just brings a lot to life. And then we had a man named Ramin, who was a pastor that taught us how to think deeper and more meaningful, and to really get like people together for a greater good. So we took all of this and formed this with also the idea in mind that most of the headlines that you see are about dopers, or this person got tested positive and this person won a race and this person cheated. And we're like, well, what about all the athletes and the brands doing it the right way? Like, they should be celebrated, and that athlete's voice should be raised and it should be heard. So that was also like a big driving force around starting the Clean Sport Collective, is let's like celebrate the people doing it the right way, and let's give them attention, and let's all come together. Because even when you think about purchasing a brand and you're like, well, what does my one purchase mean? Well, collectively it means a lot. And when we all like start, at like purchasing the products that we believe in, or celebrating the athletes doing it the right way, or celebrating the brands that got on board, and Brooks was a big company that got on board right away, which was really pivotal for us. And so was Saucony. So there's so much strength in numbers. And then when you feel like hopeless sometimes that all these dopers are stealing headlines, and then you think about all the people and the brands doing it the right way, there's so much hope and inspiration in that. And we wanted to bring hope in sometimes a hopeless sporting world. And that's how it started. And then we did the pledges because it was like a badge of honor of doing it the right way. And it was so fun to watch it launch. But then I was pregnant with my third. And so it slowed down for like a year because I was just like, I had too much going on. I had Modcraft, I had Clean Sport, I had 3 children. So it slowed down for a little while. And then like Kara and I were out to breakfast with our husbands and our children. And we're like, we should like just do a podcast, like let's ask the questions that, like traditional media can't really ask all the time. And let's highlight these athlete voices, because Kara and I went to an anti-doping conference in London, and they're like, and it was WADA and all of literally so many acronyms you would just barf. Like they'd be like the NATOs and the IOCs. And we were like, wow. Okay. And we were both on a panel, and it was just, we basically fell asleep on the panels. They were so boring. All they were like a lot of grown men in these governing bodies fighting and arguing. But yet they like kept saying like, we need to raise the athlete voice. And we're like, well, we agree, but are you ever going to do it? And we don't know. So we're going to continue to do that. And that's where like we started with the podcast. And we're also working on a lot of things behind the scenes, like building a curriculum to bring into schools and into youth camps, because it really is about the future.
Oh, so cool.
It's been like a lot of fun, and to watch it rev up and gain a lot of traction with the podcast. And through the podcast, we want to do even more to touch the youth and to touch different sports and to really make a difference.
I love that.
Yeah. And the podcast was just, kind of the revitalization of it all.
Yeah. And it's been so cool. And I know many of our listeners also listen to the podcast, and I will put links in the show notes. So you can go check it out if you haven't already. I've shared multiple episodes across multiple places. So hopefully most of you would have seen it already. But for someone listening who's thinking, okay, your podcast or the brands that sign it, you said Saucony and Brooks, what stops one of their athletes being taking a step that they feel isn't cheating, but it's kind of in that gray area? Or what about someone, does any part of you fear that one of the guests that you will have on, the people that you're highlighting, will then come up as having done something, down the road? Like, what, for the listeners wondering, like how do you know that these people are clean? How do you know that these brands aren't harboring or promoting someone who isn't?
Yeah. That's a great question, because we really don't know at the end of the day. But when we ever highlight a professional athlete or any professional athlete that signs the Clean Sport Pledge, and it's one of the requirements to be on our podcast, is that if you are tested positive, like you're also signing up 25 fine if you ever test positive. So there is, a deterrent there, and you are taking the next step to like pledge that you are clean. So there is that. I mean, will we ever know? And may we have somebody on that may test positive down the line? Maybe, but I think we are like you hear these people and you hear these athletes when they tell this story. I mean, they're so believable, right? And they're so good. And it's just like cheating or getting an edge through something that is fake is just inconceivable to them. So I doubt it, but I mean, you can never say never. And then the brands, it was, so when you sign the pledge, it's almost like in a way that if lifetime bans were to happen, it would be in the form of brands. I really feel like brands can do so much here, because if you're ever tested positive, like you're done. You shouldn't be sponsored at all anymore. Like you're taking money and sponsorship or partnership dollars from an athlete doing it the right way. And that should never be acceptable. So it was interesting. It was right before the Olympic trials, the marathon in February. And this athlete was posting all of these things, all these like, oh, look, Brooks just sent me a new kit. And this athlete was just sanctioned a 4-year ban for testing positive for EPO amongst other substances. And I was like, oh my gosh, Brooks, like I can't believe it. Like they were the first ones to sign it. And people are freaking out that they sent this athlete all of his, racing kits. And then to go to find out, like Brooks was so good on it. They jumped on it right away. Like we never sent this to them. We adhere to clean sport. He was dropped immediately once he was tested positive. So
wait, so he'd been sent that stuff before, or like he got it himself, or?
Yeah, he must have, because right after that, that happened, he like deleted all of his social media accounts. So it was, I don't know what he was doing, but I had a feeling in my heart that was a case, that like it wasn't as it had appeared. But, I was like, my gosh, what if they're still, sponsoring him, just to find out that they didn't, and they dropped him immediately, which was so like exciting and hopeful, because I was like, okay, see these companies, and if Jim Weber at all, the CEO of Brooks, like they just think in a different way. They think in a very values mindset way. And I was very like to hear that, because Kara and I were like, oh, not Brooks. And to go find out that not only did they do the right thing, they acted very quickly to make sure that they let everybody know that they did indeed do the right thing.
That's good. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for explaining that. And I didn't hear about that. So that's good to know that the brands are sticking by their pledges, and the pledge means something, which I definitely think it does. I mean, you see a lot of athletes with the symbol and put the hand up with pride. And obviously this can't be, this isn't based on any science or anything other than my opinion, but like from the episodes of Clean Sport Podcast, they just seem different in their approach. It's like they get it. Like running is about more than performance. And even in the way that they talk, like the things that they stand up for, the things that they believe in. I mean, most recently I listened to the one with Alafine Tulamuk after winning the US trials. And she was a perfect example of someone that could have easily just had it be about performance, about, no one believed not no one believed in me, but the media, that people didn't give me a chance. They just wrote me off and just brushed over her to talk about other people. But even so, she still had so much more to her, so much more that she wanted to share, so many more things that she was passionate about and would speak out about, and kept saying, like, I'm sorry, I'm probably saying too much, which I'm sure you did as well. Like, I actually found really refreshing, especially myself. I love it when people kind of overshare and really do allow themselves to get vulnerable, especially athletes. But it just seems like the people that you have on the podcast in particular are people who, get it. Like, running is about more than just training and racing and showing pictures of yourself training every day. Like it is about more than that. And that's something I've just definitely noticed with your guests. It does seem that they all have that in common. Would you?
Well, thank you.
Have you seen that as well?
I totally agree with you. Like, because, and when we like interview guests, like, I feel like there's so many good running podcasts out there that really like talk about running, like yours. So what is so interesting is getting to the person. Like, what is it about you as a person and your upbringing that just makes cheating inconceivable to you? Yeah. And then when you peel back those layers, you really find out why, like in Aliphine, like, oh my gosh, like what a beautiful soul she is. I mean, she was talking about running New York mini 10K and this woman that like stole prize money, and she was like, oh, but I could go work for McDonald's. But what about those little girls? Yes. I mean, that sentiment in itself, it's like, it's so not about her. It's so much bigger than her. So disappointing those little girls mattered more to her than this woman stealing her prize money, which when you like think about Aliphine, like that makes her such a beautiful person because that was the more important thing to her.
Absolutely.
With these little girls that could get their dreams crushed because we're over here lying and cheating. I mean, that sums her up, I think, in one sentence, which makes her so wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. Could not agree more. And so happy for her and all that she's kind of getting, not just in a performance, but in the celebration that she's getting of who she is. Although I think it was on your podcast where she was talking about the race that I met her at Bix in like 2014. And I remember being so like blown away by her because there was, all these really fast runners and I was in the elite field, but not really, content. I think I finished I don't even know where I finished, but I remember her standing out so much because all the others it's very down to business and she was just having fun and she was just kind of messing around. And it struck me how like American she was. Like she kept going, oh my God. Like she, and I just was, all the other women were very quiet and kind of focusing and she just was kind of like, like having fun and talking and sharing things. And I'm so happy to see now that like the rest of the world is seeing it with kind of her opportunity of the trials, allowing her to get on all these podcasts and show who she is. So it's really cool.
Oh, I agree.
All right. So in addition to all the other million things that we've mentioned that you do and having 3 kids, you also do public relations and communications for Ultra since June 2019. And I've already said you've got a lot going on. And so we've talked a lot about why you make the decisions that you do, but really with your background, with your experience, you could have gone anywhere. So why work with Ultra?
So with my work with the co-founder, Brian Beckstead, and I really connected with the marketing director, Chris Jones, through the year, we were actually thinking about Ultra becoming a part of Modcraft, my agency, because I actually stepped back from Modcraft for 2 years once I had my third, so I could be more of a present parent. And when I got back into working and I was like, okay, I feel like I could work with this company and they'd be a great client. VF purchased Ultra and VF owns North Face and Vans. And when they said that it was going to be internal, but I should apply, I was like, okay, I will apply. And then all of a sudden I got the job. So again, it was very organic, not expected, but it's because I've been able to like work with awesome people and we've been able to do things that are different. And I've gotten the luxury to also, say like, this matters and we should do this. And they hear me. And VF is an amazing company where purpose is first and you can just feel it in them.
Absolutely. And I definitely think people have seen that through kind of the decisions that have been made. And particularly, I know you were a big part in the decision of bringing Alicia and I on. And that's just, one in many decisions that have been made and steps that have been taken to kind of prove this. So I did have a few other things I wanted to ask you, but I also feel for your kids who are just desperate to spend time with their mummy. And I'm sure my listeners understand that the situation that we are all in right now is meaning that kids are home and kids are around and they have obviously done well to give us to this point. So Shanna, I I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. I will put links in the show notes to all of the Clean Sport Collective stuff, the Ultra stuff, but anywhere, where can people go find you specifically?
Oh, I'm the boring one. I'm just Shanna Burnette. There's no like funny or fun or clever name.
Okay, well, that's nice and easy. I think people would prefer easy over clever and having to remember it. So thank you so much for all that you do, for just being this bright light in the world, and for being someone to lead the way with taking steps, for just what you believe is right. So I really appreciate you, and I'm sure my listeners have loved getting to know you. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Tina. We really appreciate you. So it is an honor to be on your podcast, and I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you. My friends, if you have a minute and you could leave a review on your favorite podcast player, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Spotify, or whatever else podcast player you use to listen to this podcast, or if you would subscribe to this podcast, you will help me get out in front of new runners to make our tribe even bigger and even better. It might not seem like you as one person can make a difference, but really it helps a lot. And it shows me you appreciate the hard work I put in for those. Thank you so much. She is wonderful, isn't she? What a wonderful person. And just, I love everything that she's done for the running community, that she's been able to have that disconnect from her own running and yet still be able to just celebrate in others' successes and accomplishments. And I'm really thankful for her. And I hope you kind of fell in love with her the same way that I have over the years, kind of learning from her. So I've put links in the show notes to all the things she talked about, the Clean Sport Collective. You can go sign yourself up. You can go listen to the podcast. You can find her. You can obviously find Ultra. And speaking of Ultra, remember that you can enter to win a free pair of shoes every month for the rest of the year by going to tinamuir.com/ultra. If you enter once, you are entered for the rest of the year. And there's also lots of links in the show notes to other things that we mentioned throughout that at tinamuir.com/episode 186. You can also go check out our sponsors there. And I just want to say, when it comes to sponsors, as you heard us talking about today, it's really important to me, I hope that's come across, that I do select brands that I believe in and who matter. But if someone that you do look up to, if a role model does talk about a brand and you really believe in them and they believe in that brand, supporting that brand supports that person. So if you appreciate all that they do, their voice, all that they share, you going to purchase that product really, really sends a massive, loud and clear message to the brand that they are valuable. And this is a bit of a strange time for us as athletes, as brands. So any support you give to Running for Real or the people that I mention as sponsors, it really means so much. So thank you so much to anyone who has purchased something because I've recommended it. There are many of you, and I'm so, so thankful to you. All right, so next week we have Emily Abati on the show. Emily is known for her Hurdle podcast. She's also a freelance writer, and she's just done a lot within the running space and just really a great voice that you will love to learn from next week. So I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you then.
Thanks for listening to the Running for Real podcast. Be sure to check out tinamuir.com for show notes and even more helpful running information.